The river had taken her boot and she was too tired to be angry about it. One boot. Cold water to the knee on the other side. Dawn coming up gray and indifferent over the grass, and Della sitting on the bank trying to decide if dying here was laziness or strategy. The current had been faster than it looked. Most things were. She heard them before she saw them, hooves in soft ground, 2 sets, moving without hurry. She didn't run. Nowhere to run to, and only one boot, and the particular kind of exhaustion that comes from 3 days of being afraid makes the legs stupid. 2 men on horseback, young, watching her with expressions that weren't hostile. That was the first strange thing. She'd learned to read hostility early, wore the reading of it like a second skin, and these 2 had none she could find. They stopped. One of them said something she didn't understand. She put her hands where they could see them. They brought her to camp the way you'd bring in an animal that wasn't sure yet whether it was rescued or caught, carefully, without pressure, with just enough direction that she ended up somewhere warm without quite deciding to go there. The camp was larger than she expected. Fires. Children. The smell of horses and smoke and something cooking that made her stomach pull sideways with want. She counted what she had. 1 boot. The dress she stood in, soaked to the waist and starting to stiff dry wrong in the morning cold. No knife, she'd lost that at the river crossing before the boot. 42 cents in a pocket that had somehow survived, which was almost funny if you were the kind of person who still found things funny. She was trying to stay that kind of person. It was getting harder. A man came out of the larger structure near the center of camp. Tall. He moved like he was the only person who knew how much time there actually was. He stopped a few feet from her and looked at her, not the way Harlan Voss looked at her, not an appraisal, not a calculation, just a looking, the kind that takes in what's there and doesn't add anything to it. She held still and waited for the price to be named. He said something over his shoulder. A woman appeared older, with a face that had laughed a lot over the years and hadn't bothered to smooth the evidence, and the woman put a blanket around Della's shoulders and gestured her toward a fire. The man had already turned away. He didn't watch her go. She sat at the fire and waited. The blanket was warm. She noted this. She noted it specifically, the weight of it, the way it held the heat she thought she'd lost at the river crossing, the smell of wood smoke already worked into the wool. She noted it because noting it was safer than feeling it. The older woman brought food. A clay bowl, something with meat and roots, steam coming off it in the cold morning air. Della looked at the bowl. She'd been brought food before. She knew what food cost. She ran the numbers the way she always ran them. What is this going to require? What am I being softened up for? What comes after the bowl is empty? She was very fast at this math. She'd had to be. She set the bowl down beside her and repositioned her remaining boot. Set it neatly, heel side down, toe pointed away from the fire. Picked it up. Set it down again, closer. This made no sense. She did it anyway. The tall man was across the camp now, speaking with 2 of the younger men, not looking at her. Still no price. She picked up the bowl. The first mouthful made her close her eyes, which she hated. It was the kind of involuntary reaction that showed too much, gave too much away, and she'd trained herself out of it a long time ago. Apparently not completely. She chewed. Swallowed. Set the bowl on her knee and looked at the fire and made her face ordinary again. She ate all of it. She hated that she ate all of it. She was grateful she ate all of it. Both of those things sat in her at the same time and she did not try to sort them out. The boot sat beside her, going nowhere, being no use to anyone. She'd run from Harlan Voss 3 days ago. He'd been 3 days behind her the whole time. She could feel it, the way you feel weather coming. She'd gone for the river because it was the only border she could think of that wasn't his. She hadn't thought much past the crossing. She hadn't been sure there'd be anything past it. The older woman came back and took the empty bowl and smiled at her. Not a smile with anything behind it. Just a smile. Della looked at her remaining boot and thought, well, that's a thing. She slept before she meant to. The blanket and the food hit her somewhere below the level of decision, and the next thing she knew the fire was lower and the light had changed to midday gold. Nobody had touched her. Nobody had moved her. She was exactly where she'd sat down, which meant someone had let her sleep there, which was its own kind of strange math she didn't have answers to yet. She repositioned the boot and started trying to figure out her next escape. 3 days and nobody had hit her. She didn't trust it. The older woman's name was Winona. Near as Della could work out, she'd said it twice while pointing at herself, patient and unhurried, and Della had repeated it back until the sound was close enough to write that Winona nodded. This was the most language they'd managed, and it was, all things considered, more than Della had expected to manage. The corn didn't grind itself. That was the next lesson. Winona set her up with the stone and showed her the motion, slow, circular, not the violent pushing Della kept defaulting to, and watched her destroy the demonstration 3 times without changing her expression. The 4th time, Winona put her hands over Della's and moved with her. Patient. Like there was nothing in the world except getting this particular piece of corn to become something useful. Della got better at it. Slowly. In the incremental, humiliating way of learning anything after 30. She'd been given a place to sleep, a second blanket when the first night turned cold, and tasks that were real tasks, the kind that needed doing and weren't invented to keep her occupied and feeling obligated. She'd done inventory work for Harlan Voss for 2 years and she knew the difference between a job that was real and a job that was a leash. These were real. The corn needed grinding. The water needed carrying. Nobody watched her do it and nobody checked if she'd done it right. She checked herself. She always had. She kept waiting for the trap to show its hinge. He was across the camp again, the tall man. She'd learned he was called Koana, the way she'd learned Winona's name, by paying attention, and he was doing something with a length of leather near the horses. Not watching her. He'd been not watching her for 3 days in a way she was starting to suspect was actually watching her, but she couldn't catch him at it. Every man she'd known had a tell. Harlan Voss went still when he decided something. Her father had gotten talkative. The ones who worked for Voss got careful with their hands. She kept waiting for Kohana's tell. She kept not finding it. Then, the woman came. She came from the far end of camp, younger, with a way of moving that knew it was being watched and didn't mind. She went directly to Koana. Said something close to his ear. He turned toward her, and his face did something Della couldn't parse from this distance, softened, maybe, the way stone softens in certain kinds of light, which is to say barely but visibly, if you were looking. The woman laughed at something. Koana did not laugh, but there was something in the set of his shoulders that was the shape of a man who didn't need to laugh because the thing inside him was already warm. Della put down the grinding stone. She picked up the cracked clay pot near her workspace. It had been sitting there for days, out of use, just living in the corner of her space the way useless things do, and she turned it in her hands. The crack ran from the lip down almost to the base. Somebody had repaired it once, a long time ago, the kind of repair that holds for a while and then doesn't. She ran her thumb along the line of it. Up. Down. Up again. She walked back to her sleeping mat without looking back at the fire. This was fine. This was exactly the shape of things. She'd known it had a shape. She sat on the mat and traced the crack with her thumb and thought about all the very practical reasons she'd been foolish to forget that everything cost something, and the price for warmth and food and not being hit was going to present itself eventually, and probably it looked like a woman who laughed close to a man's ear, and that was simply how it was. She was good at being sensible about things. She'd had a lot of practice. The pot's crack was uneven, wider at the top, hairline near the bottom. She counted the length of it. Counted it again. Footsteps. She knew his footsteps now, which was an embarrassing thing to know. You left. Not an accusation. Not a question. Just the fact of it, said plainly, like he'd noted that the fire had burned lower or the wind had shifted. She looked up. He was standing at the edge of her space, not in it. He did that, stayed at the edge of things, waited to be invited further, which was a thing she didn't have a category for yet. I was done with the corn, she said. He sat down. Not close. Not in the way that men sit down close to make a point about how close they're sitting. Just down, cross-legged, like the ground was as good as anywhere. He didn't explain the woman. He didn't explain anything. She traced the crack in the pot and waited for the explanation to come, and it didn't, and she hated that most of all, not the not knowing, but the fact that his not explaining made her want to ask, and she hadn't wanted anything in a while, and wanting things was how you ended up with nothing. He was teaching her which plants the horses wouldn't touch. She was pretending this was useful information. It was, actually, she could see why it was. A horse that ate the wrong thing on a long ride was a problem you couldn't fix at the wrong moment, but she'd spent the morning building a case against caring about anything Koana said, and the case kept getting undermined by the fact that what he said was consistently worth knowing. This was inconvenient. They walked the edge of camp where the grass went wilder before it became prairie outright. He pointed. Named things in Lakota first, then found the English when he could, and when he couldn't he described the effect instead. This one, stomach bad. This one, fine. This, stay away from in dry months, fine and wet. She filed it. She'd always been good at filing things. Who is she to you? She hadn't planned to say it out loud. It came out the way things come out when you've been arguing with yourself about saying them long enough that your mouth gets tired of waiting for a decision. He was quiet. She watched a hawk work a thermal over the grass, unhurried, tilting in the column of warm air, and she thought, well, I said it, and whatever comes next I said it, and at least that's done. My wife's sister. His voice was the same even thing it always was. She keeps grief with me. For my wife. The hawk tipped one wing. Slid sideways on the air. She didn't say I'm sorry. She was sorry. It landed in her chest, a real weight, the kind of sorry that is just sorrow without useful purpose, but she didn't say it because it wasn't what the moment needed. He hadn't said it to get sympathy. He'd said it because she asked and he answered. That was all. They kept walking. She found the feather about 10 minutes later, hawk feather, just off the trail, still holding its shape. She picked it up. Held it between her fingers and rotated it, watching the barbs catch the light, which was automatic, the kind of thing your hands do when your head is somewhere else entirely. He said a name. One word. Said it quietly, to the grass and the air and wherever the dead go when they go. Then, kept walking like he hadn't said it at all. She didn't ask whose name. She knew. She kept pace beside him and spun the feather and thought about a woman she'd never met who had been loved by this man and was gone now, and thought about grief that needed keeping because it was too big to carry alone, and thought about a crack in a clay pot that someone had tried to fix and had held for a while. She put the feather in her pocket. She told herself it was nothing. Just a feather. Just a thing off the ground. She told herself this twice more before they got back to camp and she was still not convinced, but she kept the feather anyway, the way you keep things when you can't name the reason, but the putting down of them feels like a different kind of loss. Harlan Voss rode into the tree line at midday like he owned the sky. Della heard the horses before she saw them, and her body knew before her mind did. Something tightened in her, some cold mechanical thing, the way a door locks when the right key turns in it, except this was the opposite of a lock opening. This was everything slamming shut at once. She was on her feet before she knew she'd stood up. 3 horses. Voss in front, 2 of his men flanking. He hadn't changed. That was always the first stupid thought when she saw him again, that she'd been gone so long and moved so far and been so different, and he hadn't changed. He was just there, the same flat eyes and good boots and the particular smile that was the shape of a smile and nothing inside it. Della. He said it like a man calling a dog by name. Not angry. Not relieved. Just locating her. Knew you'd surface somewhere. You always do. The camp had gone very still around her. She could feel it. The silence was not the silence of absence but of attention, of everyone in the camp adjusting their weight slightly, the way you adjust when something requires you to be ready. Koana was there. She didn't know when he'd appeared. One moment she'd been looking at Voss and then she was aware of Koana, 6 feet to her left, between her and the horses, standing in that way he had of standing like he'd been there since before the problem arrived. He didn't speak. Voss looked at him with the expression of a man who didn't believe in things he couldn't buy. I've got no quarrel with you or yours. The woman owes me a debt. She's coming back to work it off, that's all. Private matter. Koanna said nothing. She counted the buttons on Voss's coat. For brass, 1 bone, the bone 1/3 from the top, slightly off color, a replacement for something lost. She didn't know why she was counting buttons. She kept counting. She's not property, Della said. Her voice surprised her. It came out even. Not shaking, not loud, just there, the way you'd say the corn's in the pot or the water's from the East Branch. A fact. Voss's smile changed by 1 degree. That's so. That's so. Enipe moved from somewhere behind her. She'd learned his name, Kohanna's man, quiet and fast and the kind of precise that doesn't require announcement. He moved to the right side of the horses, not rushing, and the horses felt it before Voss's men did, and then Voss's men felt it, and the whole thing shifted in that particular way that means a math problem has been solved by someone who doesn't show their work. Voss looked at his men. Looked at Enipe. Looked at Koanna, who had not moved. For brass, 1 bone. 3. 4. 1. Temporary, Voss said, to no one specific, and turned his horse. They rode. The tree line took them and, then, it was just the grass and the wind and the indifferent midday sky and Della standing with her arms at her sides, counting a button that wasn't there anymore. Koanna turned. He looked at her face, a real looking, the kind she still didn't have a category for, the kind that didn't want anything from what it found. His hand came up, brief, and settled for 1 moment on her shoulder. Just the weight of it. Just the warmth of it through the cloth of her dress. Then, it was gone. She looked at where Voss had been and counted the buttons again out of habit and got a 5 before she caught herself and stopped. Her hands were shaking. She put them flat against her thighs and pressed and looked at the tree line and told herself it was the confrontation, the adrenaline, the simple biological aftermath of fear. She didn't name the other thing. She'd been very good all this time about not naming it. A horse was saddled at the edge of camp. Winona had packed food. Nobody looked at her. Della stood in the thin morning light and looked at the horse, a solid brown mare, patient, pulling at a bit of grass while she waited, and the saddlebag with 2 days of food in it, and the direction of the trail that Koanna had pointed out to her once, weeks ago, that led toward a settlement where people spoke English and didn't know her name. Everything she needed to leave was right here. She held the lead rope. It was a good rope. New, or nearly new. The kind of thing you put on a horse you're giving away, not tying up a lead rope for a horse that's going somewhere, not staying. She held it and looked at the camp. Morning fires. The smell of smoke and damp grass. Winona moving near the food stores without looking up. 2 of the younger men talking quietly by the horses. The sound of children somewhere she couldn't see. The crack in the clay pot, which she'd moved to her sleeping space without really deciding to. The hawk feather in her pocket, which had been in every pocket she'd had since the day she found it. She looked at the lead rope. Thick braid. Good and solid and going somewhere. She found Koanna at the edge of the camp where the grass started to take over from the trodden ground, standing with his back to her, looking at whatever the horizon was doing that morning. He heard her coming, she was sure of it, he always heard everything, but he didn't turn until she stopped a few feet from him. He looked at her. Even. Waiting. I'd like to stay, she said. If that's still something. She said it the way she ground corn and noted stitches and counted buttons, plain and direct and without decoration, because she'd never had the patience for decoration and it seemed like a bad time to start. Something moved through his face. Not surprise, she'd thought it would be surprise, had braced for it slightly, but something older and quieter than surprise. The shape of a man looking at a thing he'd stopped expecting and finding it still real. It is, he said. She nodded. Once. Like they'd settled a practical matter. She walked back to the horse and unclipped the lead rope from the saddle ring and let it drop. It fell in the dust. The mare looked at it, found it uninteresting, went back to her grass. Della walked back toward the camp. Behind her, she was aware of him following, not rushing, moving in that unhurried way of his that meant everything was all right and there was enough time. Winona was coming out of the food stores when Della walked past. The older woman looked at her face, specifically, in the way women look at each other when they are reading what the words aren't saying, and she smiled the smile that didn't have anything behind it except itself. Della thought about saying something. Couldn't think of anything plain enough. She picked up the grinding stone and got to work. The corn needed doing. The day had things in it that needed doing. And, somewhere behind her, Koana was walking toward camp, unhurried as ever, and she knew his footsteps now, and she had stopped being embarrassed about that, and the feather was in her pocket and the rope was in the dust, and that was the whole of the thing. That was all of it. That was enough. Word count, 400 words across 5 chapters, now generating the image prompts, prompts.txt. Counting to 280 minimum before delivery. This will follow in the next response. Prompts.txt. Scene by scene, story order: a wide prairie at earliest dawn, the sky pale grey pink and flat, a shallow river visible in the middle distance still running high and fast from spring melt. In the foreground, a young white woman in a soaked dark calico dress sits on the muddy bank, her hair loose and dripping, one boot on her left foot and the right foot bare against the cold ground. Her expression is blank with exhaustion, past fear into something flatly practical. No figures visible yet on the horizon. Dry grass and river mud on all sides. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The same river bank at dawn, light growing slightly. The woman sits still on the bank, hands resting on her knees, one bare foot pressed into the mud. She is not looking at the water. She is looking at something in the distance with the stillness of a person who has run out of options but has not run out of thinking. A single crow on a dead branch upstream. The sky going from gray to pale gold at the edge. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. 2 Lakota scouts on horseback emerge from tall grass near the riverbank in early morning light. Their horses are calm and slow. The scouts are young, their expressions neutral and unhostile. They have stopped several feet from the woman on the bank. One has his hand open and visible, palm forward. The woman remains seated, her own hands raised slightly, showing she is unarmed. The river sounds behind them. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The woman is being led through prairie grass toward a Lakota camp in early morning. One scout rides ahead, one behind, giving her space rather than flanking her tightly. She walks barefoot on one side, the single boot in her hand. Her face is watchful. The campfires are visible ahead through the grass, smoke rising into the pale sky. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. A large Lakota camp in early morning light, multiple teepee structures, central fires burning low, horses at the far edge, children visible in the background. The woman is being walked in from the perimeter. Camp members pause briefly to look, then return to their tasks. The atmosphere is functional, alive, unhostile. Morning mist clings to the grass at the edges of camp. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. A tall Lakota man in traditional dress stands in the center of the camp, facing the woman who has just been brought in. He is still. He does not approach her. His face is calm and, assessing in a way that is not threatening, the evaluation of a man deciding what a situation needs, not what he can take from it. The morning fires are behind him. He is looking at her directly. She is looking back, waiting. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The Lakota chief stands a few feet from the white woman, hands at his sides, saying something over his shoulder toward an older woman nearby. He is not looking at the white woman now, he has already turned slightly, already given a direction. An older Lakota woman with a warm weathered face moves toward the white woman carrying a heavy wool blanket. The chief's posture is unhurried. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. An older Lakota woman wraps a heavy blanket around the shoulders of the white woman near a low fire. The white woman is rigid but not pulling away. The older woman's hands are matter-of-fact, warm, not making ceremony out of the gesture. Behind them, the camp continues its morning routine. The white woman's face is watchful and controlled. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman sits alone beside a low campfire near the edge of the Lakota camp. The fire is burning steadily. A clay bowl of food steams on the ground in front of her. She has not touched it. Her single boot is beside her, placed neatly, repositioned slightly from where it was a moment ago. She is looking at the bowl with an expression that is calculating, not hungry, though she is hungry. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Across the camp, the tall Lakota chief speaks with two younger warriors, his back turned toward the woman by the fire. He is gesturing at something in the middle distance. He is not looking at her. The woman is visible in the soft background behind him, a small figure by the fire. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Close on the white woman's hands near the campfire. She has picked up her single boot from beside her and is setting it down again, repositioning it. The boot is worn and mud-caked. Her fingers are still slightly cold stiff. The bowl of food sits untouched beside the boot. Morning firelight on both. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman raises the bowl of food to her mouth at the campfire, eyes closing involuntarily at the first mouthful. Her face shows something she immediately controls, the involuntary expression of a person who has not eaten well in days. Her other hand holds the boot in her lap. The fire pops quietly. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman sits by the fire with an empty bowl on her knee, looking into the flames. Her expression has settled into something flat and ordinary. She is still holding the boot. The camp moves softly around her. The older woman who gave her the blanket passes nearby, picks up the empty bowl, and smiles at her without requiring anything in return. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman asleep by the fire in the Lakota camp, midday sun now strong and golden. She has slid sideways slightly, still wrapped in the blanket, her single boot on the ground beside her. Camp life continues around her, someone works nearby, children play at a distance, but she has been left undisturbed exactly where she fell asleep. The fire has burned to coals. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The Lakota camp in full midday light. The white woman is awake again, sitting up in her blanket, looking around at the camp with an expression of recalibration, taking inventory of her situation, her exits, her odds. The boot is beside her again. The camp looks larger and more settled in daylight. Smoke rises from several fires. The chief is visible at a distance, not looking at her. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Early morning in the Lakota camp, interior view. The white woman and the older Lakota woman Winona sit together near a flat grinding stone set in the earth. Winona demonstrates the circular grinding motion with calm patience. The white woman watches closely, her posture slightly stiff, a person trying to learn something difficult while also maintaining dignity. Corn kernels on the stone. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman attempts to grind corn on the flat stone, pushing too hard, her motion angular and wrong. Winona watches without judgment, the way a person watches a mistake they've seen before and know how to correct. Dust from the grinding rises slightly. The woman's jaw is set. She is frustrated but not showing it. The morning fire crackles nearby. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Winona's hands cover the white woman's hands on the grinding stone, guiding the motion slower, circular, with full weight behind it. They grind together. The white woman's posture changes slightly, the rigidity in her shoulders dropping 1 degree. Neither is looking at the other. Their hands move together over the stone. Firelight from the morning fire beside them. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Wide view of the Lakota camp in mid-morning. The white woman carries a large clay water jug from a stream at the camp's edge. She has been given real tasks. No one is supervising her. She moves through the camp with the practical body language of a person used to work. Other camp members move around her naturally. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The tall Lakota chief works with a length of leather cord near the horses at the far end of camp. He is focused on the work. The white woman is visible in the background, grinding corn, going about her morning task. He is not watching her. Or appears not to. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman pauses in her work and looks across the camp to where the chief stands near the horses. She is trying to catch his tell, the sign that will tell her what this is going to cost her. His back is to her. She looks at him for a moment, expressionless, then looks back at her grinding stone. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. A younger Lakota woman moves through the camp toward the chief, graceful, self-possessed, her movement drawing the eye naturally. She is attractive in the way of a woman who has always been looked at and long since stopped caring. She approaches the chief near the horses. The white woman watches from a distance over her grinding stone. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The younger Lakota woman stands close to the chief near the edge of camp, speaking something into his ear. The chief's profile shows a slight softening in his posture, subtle, barely readable. The woman laughs. The sound carries across the camp. Afternoon light, golden and warm, on both of them. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Close on the white woman's face across the camp. She is watching the chief and the other woman. Her expression is flat and practical, a person identifying the shape of a situation they have seen before. The grinding stone is in her hands. After a moment she sets it down. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman sets down the grinding stone near a cracked clay pot at the edge of her workspace. She picks up the cracked pot and turns it in her hands. The crack runs from lip nearly to base. She traces it with her thumb. The camp continues behind her. The chief and the other woman are no longer in her line of sight. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman walks alone through the Lakota camp toward her sleeping mat, carrying the cracked clay pot. She does not look back at the fire or the horses or anywhere near the chief. Her posture is controlled and deliberate, a person putting distance between themselves and something they've decided not to feel. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman sits alone on her sleeping mat near the edge of the camp, the cracked clay pot in her lap. She is running her thumb up and down the crack line. Her face is set into something between practical and closed off. Evening coming, the light going amber. Fires beginning to be stoked nearby, but she is outside the warmth of them. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Close on the cracked clay pot in the white woman's lap, firelight from a nearby hearth catching the uneven surface. Her thumb traces the crack wider at the top, nearly hairline at the bottom. An old repair visible along one side. The pot is useless now. She keeps holding it anyway. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The Lakota chief walks through the camp in the early evening, moving in the direction of the white woman's sleeping area. His pace is unhurried. He does not announce himself. The fires are being stoked for the evening around him. Camp members move through their evening tasks. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The chief stands at the edge of the white woman's space, not inside it. She is sitting on her mat with the pot. He is looking at her steadily. The white space between them is deliberate, he is waiting to be further in before going further in. His expression is even. He says something. She looks up. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The chief sits down cross-legged on the ground near the edge of the white woman's space, not close, not crowding, just down. He sits the way a person sits when the ground is as good as anywhere. The woman has not moved. She still has the pot. The evening fire nearby. He does not explain anything. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman and the chief sit near each other in the evening camp, not speaking. She is turned slightly away, thumbs still on the crack in the pot. He is sitting still, looking ahead rather than at her. The silence between them is not hostile, it is the silence of two people who are both waiting for something and neither knows what. Firelight. Smoke. Distant horses. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Morning in the Lakota camp, the chief and the white woman walking side by side at the edge of camp where the tended ground gives way to wild grass. He walks slowly. She walks beside him with her arms crossed, the posture of a person who has decided to attend to something without committing to caring about it. He points at something in the grass ahead. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The chief crouches at the edge of the prairie grass, pointing out a low-growing plant with narrow gray-green leaves. The white woman stands beside him looking down at it. His voice is even and quiet as he speaks, "This one, no good." She watches his hands. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The chief and the white woman stand near a cluster of taller prairie plants, pale seed heads catching the light. He names something in Lakota, then finds a gesture for the English stomach bad, a hand pressed to his own midsection. She watches. Her arms uncross slightly. Her posture is shifting toward real attention even as her face stays careful. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The two figures walk together through the open prairie edge in clear morning light, short grass, long sky, a hawk visible as a speck in the upper distance. He is slightly ahead. She is looking up at the hawk. Her arms are at her sides now. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Close on the white woman's face in the open grass. She has stopped walking. She is looking ahead at the chief's back while he keeps moving. Her expression has changed, the careful flatness giving way to something more complicated. A question that is ready to come out. She opens her mouth. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman and the chief stand facing each other in the open prairie edge, the camp visible behind them in the distance. She has asked him something. He is quiet. His head is slightly down. The hawk works the sky above them. Dry grass moves in a slow wind. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The chief speaks, his voice low and even, looking at the ground between them. His hands are still. His posture has not changed dramatically, he carries the grief the way he carries everything, without performance. The white woman stands listening, her arms at her sides. Her face has gone still and, careful in a different way than usual, careful with something fragile, not defensive. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. A single hawk turning a thermal above the open prairie, seen from below, the span of wings against pale sky, the easy tilt of the bird riding the heat column without effort. Below, two figures small in the grass, visible if you look. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The chief and the white woman resume walking along the prairie edge. Both are quiet. She is slightly behind him now, watching his back. Her expression has something in it she is not managing, a crack in the careful flatness, something that got through. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Close on the chief's profile as he walks. He stops. says a single word, unnamed, into the open air. Not to her. To something else. His face does not change expression. He keeps walking after. The prairie grass around him, the wide sky, the horse smell on the wind. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman has stopped walking. She stands in the prairie grass, watching the chief walk ahead. Her right hand is in her pocket. She has just picked up a feather from the ground without quite deciding to. Her face is working through something it cannot resolve. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Close on the white woman's hand holding a single hawk feather, long, banded brown and cream, still whole. She rotates it between her fingers, the barbs catching the light. Her thumb and forefinger hold the quill. The grass at the edge of her dress. The camp visible in the background. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman walks back toward the Lakota camp behind the chief, slightly slower than him. The feather is in her right hand, still being turned. The prairie opens behind her. The camp opens ahead. She is in the space between. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman stands at the edge of the camp, the feather in her hand. She looks at it once more. Puts it in the pocket of her dress. Her face has gone back to its practical setting. She walks on into the camp. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Late morning in the Lakota camp. The white woman has returned to the grinding stone. She works with more patience than before, the circular motion closer to right. Winona passes nearby, sees the improvement, nods without making a thing of it. The sound of corn on stone. Smoke. Horses at a distance. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Wide shot of the prairie tree line at the edge of the Lakota camp's territory, midday. 3 figures on horseback are visible in the tree line, 2 flanking, 1 in front. They are still watching. The camp is visible in the middle distance. No one in the camp has reacted yet. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman in the camp pauses her work. She is facing away from the tree line, but her body has reacted, gone rigid, a subtle animal stillness, the posture of someone whose body knows something before the mind confirms it. Her hands stop. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman turns and sees the 3 riders in the tree line. Close on her face, the recognition that hits before the features are even fully resolved. Something in her face locks down. Empties. Goes to the flat, sealed expression she wears when something very bad is happening and she needs to be invisible inside it. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The 3 riders emerge from the tree line and approach the camp at a slow walk. The man in front is in his 40s, well dressed for the frontier, boots good and coat buttoned, a man who handles money and is used to people making room for him. His expression is not angry. It's the patient expression of someone who has already decided the outcome. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The Lakota camp goes quiet as the 3 riders approach. Camp members have moved, not run, not gathered in alarm, but shifted, redistributed, the way a camp shifts when it is paying attention. Children are no longer visible. A warrior near the central fire has his hands loose at his sides. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The Lakota chief stands between the white woman and the approaching riders. He appeared without announcement. He is standing still, not braced for impact, not aggressive, just there, positioned, in the way a stone is positioned by geology rather than choice. The riders have pulled up 10 yards off. The man in front looks at him. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Close on the chief's face, 3/4 view, watching the riders. His expression is the same it always is. Not cold, empty of the kind of warmth that is performed, full of the kind that is structural. A man who knows what he is and does not need to announce it. The sun directly overhead. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The man on horseback speaks, looking down at the chief, his posture comfortable in the saddle, a man used to conducting business from a height. His two men flank him quietly. The prairie stretches behind them. The camp is at their backs. The chief does not respond. Does not move. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman stands slightly behind and to the left of the chief. Her arms are at her sides. Her face is the sealed expression, no fear visible, because showing fear to this man is a specific kind of mistake she learned not to make a long time ago. She is looking at the man on horseback steadily. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Close on the white woman's face as she looks at the man on horseback. Something in her eyes, not fear, not quite the specific hardness of a person who has been in this exact position before and knows exactly what it costs to hold still and not give anything away. Her jaw is set. Her breathing is controlled. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Close on the man on horseback's coat, 4 brass buttons and 1 bone button, the bone 1/3 from the top, slightly off color. The coat is well made and fits him well. He is used to being taken seriously. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman takes 1 step forward to stand beside the chief rather than behind him. It is a small step. It is not a small thing. Her chin is level. She speaks. The man on horseback looks at her, his expression adjusting by 1 degree. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. A Lakota warrior moves from somewhere behind the mounted men, smooth, unhurried, coming around to the right flank of the horses. He does not rush. The horses feel it. One of them shifts sideways. The flanking man on horseback tightens his grip on his reins. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The man on horseback looks from the warrior to the chief to the white woman. He is doing math. His expression is the expression of a man who has decided this particular debt is not worth the specific price of collecting it today. He says 1 word. Turns his horse. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The 3 riders moving back toward the tree line at a walk, not hurrying. The tree line receives them. The camp watches them go in silence. The chief stands facing the tree line a moment after they've vanished. The white woman stands beside him, both of them watching the place where the riders were. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The chief turns from the tree line to face the white woman. He is checking her face, not her safety, specifically her face. She is looking at where the riders went. He looks at her steadily. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The chief's hand comes up and settles, briefly, on the white woman's shoulder. 1 beat of contact. His face is still and even. Hers has not changed from the sealed expression, but there is something below it, a slight loosening around the eyes. His hand is already lifting away. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The chief's hand drops from her shoulder. He looks out at the tree line once more. The camp begins to reanimate around them, quiet sounds of people resuming, the functional hum returning. The white woman stands still a moment longer. Her arms are at her sides. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Close on the white woman's hands at her sides. They are trembling slightly, a fine tremor, barely visible, the aftermath of adrenaline leaving. She presses them flat against her thighs. The trembling is not visible when her palms are against the fabric. She breathes. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman standing alone at the edge of the camp, looking at the tree line. The camp is behind her. The sky is bright and cloudless overhead. Her posture is controlled, but her hands are pressed hard against her legs. She is doing the work of being ordinary. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman looks down at her hands, pressed against her thighs. She counts something, the buttons on a coat no longer visible. Her lips move slightly. She catches herself. Stops. Looks up at the tree line. The ordinary sky. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Dawn light at the edge of the Lakota camp. A saddled brown mare stands patiently near the camp perimeter, a full saddlebag tied on. New lead rope. Good rope. The horse pulls lightly at a bit of grass at her feet. The camp is quiet behind her, fire's just starting. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman stands beside the saddled mare in the early light. She has one hand on the lead rope. She is not moving. The horse waits. The camp is arranged normally behind her, Winona near the food stores, other camp members at early tasks. No one is looking at her directly. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Close on the white woman's face as she stands with the lead rope. She is looking toward the camp, not at the horse. Her expression is the calculating one, but something has entered the calculation that wasn't there before. It is doing something to the math. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Winona at the food stores, not looking up. Her movements are unhurried and ordinary. She has packed the saddlebag. She is not watching the white woman by the horse. The morning light is soft on her. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Wide shot of the Lakota camp in early morning. The saddled horse at the left edge of frame. The white woman standing beside it, very still. The camp continuing its morning life across the rest of the frame, fires, movement, the sound of horses. The space between the woman and the camp. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Close on the white woman's pocket, the outline of the hawk feather visible through the fabric. Her hand rests against it, not holding it, just resting there, the way you rest a hand on something you didn't know you were touching until you notice you are. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman turns from the horse and walks back through the camp. She is not running. She is walking with the same practical body language she carries everything with, purposeful, even, no flourish. The horse is behind her. The camp opens ahead of her. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman walks past Winona without stopping. Winona glances up, looks at her face, and looks back down at her work without saying anything. A small nod. That is all. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The chief stands at the far edge of camp where the tended ground gives way to grass. His back is to the camp. He is looking at the horizon, the same one he always looks at, the long prairie light. He is standing still. The morning is cold and bright. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman approaches the chief from behind. He does not turn yet. She stops a few feet from him. They are both looking at the same horizon now, the flat prairie going out to wherever it goes, the sky enormous above it. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The chief has turned. He faces the white woman. They stand a few feet apart at the edge of camp. Her face is plain and direct, the same face she wears when she is saying the corn's ready or the water's from the East Branch. She is saying something that has nothing plain about it. He is listening. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Close on the chief's face as he listens to her. The slight movement threw it, not surprise, something older and quieter. The face of a man who stopped expecting something and is now looking at it. He speaks one short answer. His eyes are on hers. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman nods once. The nod of someone who has settled a practical matter to their satisfaction. She turns and walks back toward camp. Her stride is even. Not fast, not slow. Just walking. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Wide shot of the camp perimeter. In the foreground, the lead rope lies in the dust where the saddled horse was. The horse has wandered a step away and is grazing. The rope is in the dirt. The woman is visible walking away into camp, small in the frame. The chief follows at a distance, unhurried. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Close on the lead rope lying in the prairie dust near the horse's feet. The horse grazes. The rope is still. Just rope. Just dust. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The white woman walks through the Lakota camp toward the grinding stone. The morning is full and bright now. She picks up the stone and sets to work, the circular motion, the patience, not fighting it. The corn goes under the stone. Winona passes, sees, keeps going. Smoke rises from the fires. The world is ordinary in the good way. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. The chief walks back into camp behind the white woman at some distance. He stops near the horses. He looks toward where she is working. He does not move toward her. He just looks for one moment. Then, he goes to his own work. The camp holds both of them. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West. Wide final shot of the Lakota camp in full morning light, fires burning clean, horses at the far edge, the prairie vast and open beyond. The white woman is a small figure near the center of frame, grinding stone in hand, doing the work of the day. Children visible at the edges. Smoke rising into a clear sky. The chief visible at the periphery, going about his work. The world continuing. Realistic photograph style, cinematic lighting, 1870s American West.